Okay. Well, welcome to the Quixotic Heights podcast, where dreams take flight. I'm your host, Amy M. Lee, and today we're exploring trauma and healing. Today's Quixote is Jennifer Mangini, and she's the author of A Shadow of Me, the Oklahoma City bombing, and how it changed my life. It's an honest, raw conversation. It's a memoir, and it confronts failures, embracing forgiveness, celebrating resilience. And Jen is not just a writer, she's an artist, she's an Army veteran, a nurse, an all around badass. And she brings a lot of heart and a lot of humor to those around her. So today we're going to discuss everything from life in the Army, her experiences with the Oklahoma City bombing, and what it took to write her memoir. We'll explore faith, we'll explore anger, forgiveness, and all the spectrums of the human emotions. So with that, let's buckle up. Let's have an emotional ride through the world of identity with Jennifer Mangini. Thank you. Welcome. Glad to have you here, my dear.
Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate being on here, and I'm so honored to be a guest of your podcast.
Well, thank you. So tell us a
Definitely.
little bit about your quixotic moment. What was your crazy dream?
So I'm just gonna go back and go old school and uh, just when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to make a difference. I didn't care if I was gonna be an astronaut or a firefighter or just somebody who was going to be just all around badass, although I wasn't allowed to say badass at that time. But I knew I was going to make a difference. And I don't know if that's everybody's dream when they're a kid, but that was mine. And, uh, and so, becoming a combat medic and then becoming a nurse was just kind of in my DNA, I think. So, yeah, I'd say I've been able to fulfill part of my dream at least.
That's wonderful. So tell me a little bit about some of the milestones that you have reached in order to get to your goals and your dreams.
So one was becoming a soldier. When you go through when someone goes through basic training, they bring you in and they pretty much break you down, and then they build you back up. And there's a defining moment that happens when, and I'm sure it's the same feeling as it is when somebody maybe gets their bachelor's degree or gets their master's degree, or when they accomplish something that they've been working on for so long. And so when I put on that uniform that day that I was going to be, graduate as an actual soldier, because you're never called a soldier when you're in basic training. So it's a long time, or it feels like a long time of just dealing in the grind and thinking, oh man, am I ever going to make it? And then becoming a soldier, putting on that uniform, having that clean cut, and walking out there and then being given that honor of achieving that goal. That was a huge one for me.
Well, thank you so much for serving, Jen, and thank you for
Thank you.
being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I know that you've been through a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about who you were before April 19th, 1995, when things came crashing down in Oklahoma City?
Yes. I was um, I was a cocky soldier. I was somebody who we did. When I joined the army, I didn't realize that one of the things I was going to learn how to do was was drink alcohol, and so we would drink pretty much on the weekends and of course not on duty, that type of thing. But we would basically go out, party, and then go and work hard. So it was work hard, party hard, and not to say that that was, I mean, probably not the healthiest thing, but also not the worst thing ever. Because it wasn't something, we weren't escaping reality. We were just kids having fun, and I was just trying to have as much fun as I possibly could. I was in great shape. I could outdo anybody on push-ups and sit-ups. Couldn't outdo everybody on running, but I could run a long way. But when the bombing occurred, and when I went and I served my country in that manner that we're going to talk about more, it did change me. And unfortunately, for 20 years, I didn't realize how much it changed me. And yeah, so to sum up the person that I was beforehand, I mean, I was probably your typical 22-year-old who didn't know what pain was yet, and could outdo anybody in push-ups.
What about your family? What were their thoughts about, you know, you going into the army, and what was your life like during the upbringing process?
So if my mom listens to me, or listens to this podcast, which I'm sure she will because I'm going to send it to her. So when I called and told my mom that I was joining the army, my mom literally said, "Whoopee, my daughter's going to do something with her life." Because apparently I wasn't doing much. I was going to the junior college in the area, but honestly, yeah, I was just buying time, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had a group of friends. I had a really great family life. I had a rough start at the beginning of my life, but by the time I was in my 20s, or early 20s, teens and 20s, I had a solid family life, and was, knew what love was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What were you doing, or where were you at on the day of the Oklahoma City bombing?
So I had actually gotten out of the active duty army, and I was living still in Lawton, Oklahoma, and I'd gotten a job. At the local grocery store, just stocking shelves, and it was a night shift. And so the morning of the bombing, I had come home and gone to bed, and my mom called and woke me up. And I actually do talk about this in the book, and because it was such a uh, surreal feeling, and she said, "You got to turn the news on. You got to see what's happening. This is in Oklahoma City." And so I turned the TV on and just sat in horror, and thought, "Wow, this is amazing." Didn't know I was going to be called up. I had only met my commanding officer one time, and that was to swear in. And so it was a very new and, like I said, surreal feeling to see, this happening. Much like most Americans who were watching it on the news and thinking, "How could this have even happened?"
Wow.
Yeah,
And feel free to stop or pause at any moment, if we get into a little bit
of
too
course.
deep. But what do you remember most vividly about those moments, when you were called in?
So, um, so my sister had called me, and my sister Tina and I we've always had a really close relationship. She's 4 years older than me, so much of our existence had been me clowning and making her life as not miserable in a bad way, but miserable in a little sister way.
Of
And
course.
so she called me, and she had such sincerity in her voice, and she said, "Jenny, are you getting called up? I see this on the news, or I saw this on the news." And I think my first thought was actually just, why would Tina even know about this? And of course my mom had known about it. Of course it was national news, of course, because it was so huge, and um so when she asked me that, I was like, well, they haven't done it yet, and so they probably won't. And we hang up the phone, and I think it was maybe that night, or just not. It was not a very long time afterward, that my commander called, and he said, "Specialist Mangini, we'd like you to come up. We're calling you up. If you don't want to come, we can call the next person. We have this roster." And I mean, everything in me was like, "Of course I'm going to come. This is what I signed up for. These are the moments that as a soldier, you live for, and he said, hey, I'm not sure exactly what the conversation was, but basically he said something about, going up there, helping identify victims, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I heard. So in my young, naive, cocky self mind, I heard, I'm just going to go up there and, maybe take some blood pressures and, really, help some people out kind of thing. And in no way did I understand that these were the people that had died and that I was going to help literally piece bodies together, and of not only, adults who were working there, but also those wonderful, beautiful babies, and I think that's something that, if I could go back in time and tell that person standing there on that phone with a cord attached to the wall, hey, this is going to be a huge deal. One, I'm sure that I would still say yes, but two, I would say, make sure you're taking care of you, because I didn't understand what any of that meant at that time.
Yeah, well, and at that time there wasn't a thing as PTSD, right?
No.
You dealt with it really.
Absolutely. You dealt with it. You didn't talk about it. If there was an issue, it was literally, again, hey, let's go have a beer and we'll shoot the shit. Excuse my language. And, that was it. It wasn't, hey, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you feel like, do you have emotional, physical reactions to certain things, like triggers?
I do.
Yeah.
So there's a few that I've actually been able to work through. There's something called EMDR, and if I apologize, I don't remember what it actually stands for, but it's a therapy that helps people with PTSD, and it has some lights going across, and it in a very layman's way of explaining it, it basically jumbles the emotions and the facts between the different sides of your brain, and it makes it not so hard to cope with thinking of something. So that's probably the most layman way of explaining that. But for me, the one huge trigger that I had was, and it sounds so silly, but it was Vicks Vapor Rub. And because we rubbed Vicks Vapor Rub on our, right here on our upper lip, and then we would double mask. We would mask up, and then which I'm sure probably wasn't even very effective, but it was more probably mental for us to be protecting ourselves from what we didn't understand. And so we were masking up, and then we were having the N95, the huge pink respirators on. We wore double gloves. We had we wore as much gear as they would let us have. And so the thought was, well, Vicks Vapor Rub is a very, strong smell and strong scent. And so it's going to, mask anything that we're going to be able to, smell as far as, death. And I will tell you, it doesn't. And so for years, when I saw even the jar, saw a commercial, anything about Vicks Vapor Rub, it would just physically put me in I just wanted to throw up when I saw it. And it's just horrible, to have something so banal, and it's, you're watching a show and all of a sudden you see a Vicks Vapor Rub commercial and it's just like, well, crap, So the EMDR with that really helped me be able to, I don't really like it in my house, but I can now see a commercial for it and it doesn't do that to me.
Really? Okay. Well, that's
Triggers are such a it seems so silly and it seems so stupid, but it's so time stopping for somebody,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know? Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what life was like after you fulfilled your duties in that capacity.
Um, so I didn't really think that I had changed. Sorry about the camera there. So I came back. And I'm gonna give you just one more piece of this, or a sidebar. So when, for over 20 years, when somebody would ask me about the bombing, because one, it's not something I wear on my sleeve. I don't walk up to people and be like, "Hey, this is what I've done in my life." No, you know. So when people would ask me about it, I would say, "Yeah, we were." In my mind, we would have had to have been there for at least a week, you know, and it was we. I was on site for less than 3 days. I think it was actually a full 3 days, but it was only 3 days that we were there, and it's like, how can a minute change your life like that, you know? Um, so to come back into the question that you just asked me, um, I just went back into my life, you know? I went into, I was gearing towards going into nursing school, so I started going to school. Things were moving pretty well for me, but at the same time, there was something inside me that it just didn't click. Nothing would click right anymore, you know? Um, and I had this anger that would pop up at the silliest or stupidest moments that I would explode and I wouldn't recognize myself. And I didn't realize that that was just, that was this mental thing that I had going on now, because like you said, we didn't know what that was. And there was nothing wrong with me,
Right.
you know?
You were young, cocky, you were out there just
Right. If you
being
would have said
done
there
for
was something
three
wrong with
days.
me, I probably would have, it would not have ended well for you, or me, because I would have gotten really mad, but at the same time, it was like, there's nothing, but there wasn't anything wrong with me. It was something had changed inside of me. And it's taken me years of therapy to realize that point. Because there
Yeah.
isn't anything wrong with somebody that has PTSD. It's that something in their hypothalamus is actually different. So
Yeah.
physiologically, something is different now.
And it's all about what happened to you, not what's wrong with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 So you started going from this, angry person that you didn't recognize, and you spiraled, I think, rather quickly into, you know, just drugs, alcohol. Like, I'll let you tell that story. How did you
Yeah.
find yourself going into that path?
So it actually, that wasn't, it, it was a spiral, but it wasn't very, very quick. It was, things progressed. My family was in California. I was in Oklahoma. I'd gotten out of the military. They always asked me, why are you not moving back? And I never had a good answer. I didn't realize that I was keeping everybody at bay, because I was in protection mode. I was in survival mode. But I was still able to, I graduated nursing school. I bought a house. I started working as a nurse. I was succeeding in so many things, but at the same time, I always felt like it was never enough. I always felt like there was something so wrong, but I didn't know how to say anything. And I would always be so angry because nobody would ever help me, but I didn't know that I was keeping everybody out so far. I don't know if that makes sense, but so, um, just like a lot of other people, in the early 2000s, or 2008, 2009, around there, when a lot of people lost their homes, so did I. And that's when everything just dove. It was, no stopping. Everything went. every time I thought I had hit the worst possible moment that I could ever hit, it would go even deeper. And so I lost my home. Yes, there started being a huge addiction issue. I stopped working as a nurse, and I ended up homeless on the streets of Oklahoma City. And it was nowhere or nothing like I ever had imagined. I mean, cocky 22-year-old Jen would have walked past and just been like, what is wrong with you? You know, would never have recognized the person that I ended up as,
Mm.
ever.
And how long were you unhoused and out on the streets?
Um, about probably almost 5 years.
Wow, 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
That's, I mean, yeah. So it was off and on. You know, like I said, I would think that I had gotten something, going, it, you know, let me explain too. So the VA in is a close proximity to the coroner's office in Oklahoma City. The bombing site is close proximity to the VA. I would not go into the area where the bombing site had been, and now is a memorial.
Mhm.
Couldn't do it, wouldn't do it. If I turned the wrong corner and could look up and even see the name of the street, I would go into a panic attack. But my panic attacks weren't, oh my gosh, I need help. It was, I'm going to headbutt somebody. There was no victim mentality. It was just sheer anger would pop out. I was just angry for years, and just a horrible way to live. So the only way that I could like myself at the time, which it wasn't even a liking, the only way that I could be okay, I felt, was if I was high. And of course, we all know that's no way to live, you know.
And did your family know about any of this during the 5 years that you were out there?
Um, yeah, my mom, man, my mom, I got to give her props because one, I do have my mom still. It's amazing. I'm so blessed. Uh, but my mom would have, we, every once in a while I'd talk to her on the phone and she'd say, like, oh, I'm going to send you, some clothes uh, or I sent you a McDonald's, gift card she was not high. She was not aware of things. She was very aware of what was going on. And she told me one day after I had gotten help finally and been through therapy and stuff, she said, I just thought one day I was going to get a phone call and somebody would have had, found your body. And that is just like, I'm so glad that I am in a position where I have been able to make amends and, that I've been able to come back. My mom's ringtone for me is staying alive. She calls me the prodigal
Your little
daughter.
dance too.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, totally.
well, God bless mom.
Absolutely.
I gotta ask you though, five years in and out, that's a long time.
It is.
Live out on the streets when you're, first of all, how do you even have access to drugs when you don't have gainful, regular employment and you just, you're out of it?
Yeah. So, I learned how to make money. There was certain things that I wouldn't do to go out and make money. But there's a lot of ways to make, 5 or 7 bucks. I collected cans. I did, like, hey, you need your lawn mowed. I mean, I would do anything minus a couple of things to make money. And yeah, I mean, I would scrape by. So a lot of times if I had $7 in my pocket, I would go and say, hey, I got $7 in my pocket, or but it was not going to be $7 that I'd go spend at, the store usually. But I would, if I was going to go spend money on food, it wasn't going to be anything organic. I guarantee that. you know, uh, yeah.
Talk
So
about your road to recovery, your heroic road to recovery. How does
yes.
how does one even begin to
So my heroic road to recovery uh, did not look very heroic when I I had gotten a drug charge and and just thought, okay, well now my career, my life as me has ended, and so it had dropped me further into the dope game and all of that just craziness. Um, and so I had ended up in jail, and some people go to jail and they look around and they're like, oh, this is not where I'm supposed to be. They make changes, they never go back. I would love to say that that was me, and it wasn't. I had learned very quickly that if I actually showed up to my court hearings, the judge usually wouldn't say anything that I wanted to hear, and so I just didn't show up. And so I had ended up once again in Oklahoma County Jail on a failure to appear. And usually a failure to appear, you're in there for like, over the weekend. You see the attorney. They say, well, make sure you go to jail, make sure you're going to court, and then they let you out. So this time though, I was in there, I had been in there about 2 months or 3 months, and thought, okay, well, with no answers, no moving forward, nothing. I was just sitting, and finally, somebody from the Veterans Diversion Program came in, and they said, "What are we going to do with you?" Because I'd already been in communication with them, but of course, the whole time I was seeing them, I was high as hell. So then they knew it, you know. So when this woman came in and asked me that, me sitting there in handcuffs, her in a really nice dress and heels and everything else that attorneys wear. My mouth opened, and I don't think it was myself speaking. I think it was a higher power, or God, that said, "Send me to rehab." And she said, "Okay." And she closed her book and she was out of the room. And I was like, "What just happened? Did I just what?" But that silly kind of moment was the start of where we are today. And it was myself humbling myself, or becoming humble, becoming transparent, becoming somebody who just says, hey, this is absolutely me, and someone who learned how to make what is just a terrible, one, the bombing moment in history, but two, uh, my efforts to do my job as a soldier, and then my time trying to deal with that and dealing with the PTSD, making that part of my history and not something that I try to avoid. And I
Sure.
think that's so important for anyone who, not to go off on a tangent on you, but I think that's so important for people who go through things. It's like, yes, did that happen? Yes, it did. Yes, because really bad things can happen to anybody. And it's the way we learn and grow from that, and then say, yeah, this is part of our history, but look at all these things I've done since then. Look at what I do now. Look at what I do to be somebody who I'm proud to look in the mirror, you know?
That's remarkable and very inspiring. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing that, Jen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your memoir.
Yeah.
First of all, how long has it taken you to put that all together?
I think probably a little over 3 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to write a memoir?
Um, so for years, whenever somebody would hear that I had, um, had worked the bombing, they would say, "Oh, you should write a book." And I was always like, I'm not going to write a book. Maybe I'll just talk and somebody else can write it down. you know, but nobody ever wanted to start writing. Everybody just wanted to, listen. and, and plus I had all this inside me. And I actually, the majority of this book has been written on my iPhone. And and I have woken up in the middle of the night, or my time to write usually, unfortunately for me, because I do like to sleep, but it's been like 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, wide awake, and I grab my phone and I just did it, and it just comes out. And at first, it was just more of just a bunch of words, and then it kind of started forming, and then yeah, it's been a really, and now I have actual chapters and things like that, and it's so exciting and so neat to see how something really so beautiful can come out of just my writing, or my thoughts of 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
understand that. So, would you, how has it been very cathartic for you, or healing for you in the writing process?
I think it's been extremely cathartic. It's been, there's there's some there's a lot of humor in the book. I try to like laugh as much as I can now in my life, um, but also there's some very hard hitting points, and just some extremely transparent, raw truth of of the feelings of things, and those moments that are so defining. You know.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
It's definitely heart-wrenching, and I love how raw and honest it is, because
Yeah.
you do just lay it out, like you talk about it as if you were having a conversation with the reader, which is
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. But maybe you can grace us with a chapter, or a paragraph, or some kind of reading.
I can do that. I'm gonna give you the back. I have this one part that I'll go into, but I'm gonna give you the background of it. And it's basically, I have gotten out of jail, whew, finally, and I'm in the VA in Leavenworth, Kansas, and um, I'm working with some amazing people. So here we go. Here's chapter 17. You have a disease, but you are not the disease. The older woman had perfect combination of white, gray, and dark hair. It, as well as her clothing, was worn in stunning fashion, and she held herself in a great air of grace and warmth. She was the first therapist who I opened up to, who listened, and whom I was able to convey the extent of the horrific tragedy that occurred in Oklahoma City. Not to the state or to the country, but within me. It was a beautiful day, cold but beautiful. The white snow glistened outside the large bay windows of Leavenworth, Kansas, VA, third floor conference room. If you've ever spent time in the Midwest, you will understand this. If you have not, you should go sometime, but I would personally suggest the fall, when there is no snow and a less chance of tornadoes. I was in dual diagnosis rehab program. Every one of us in the room was a veteran, and every one of us had an addiction and another diagnosis, PTSD. I was sitting with men and women of all ages, crusty gray-haired old dudes from the Vietnam era, still arguing about Army versus Navy. Some had walkers, some had wheelchairs, but all had something to say. We were addicts of all sorts, alcoholics, some homeless, all veterans, and all completely fucked up. There are men and women around my age, and younger, and oh so much younger. They were veterans who had been in the Gulf War, Afghanistan, OEF, and OIF. Some seemed so young, with the bodies that should have been full of youth, but their eyes were as empty as mine. And how on earth did I get here? So
Wow.
you had to jump in and read the rest of that. So
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Okay, so what does life look like for you now? I understand you're also, you have a lovely Lori in your life. Tell us a
I
little
do. I
bit.
do have a lovely Lori in my life, and we have a wonderful home life relationship. Um, we have a couple of dogs. We live in the Pacific Northwest. We're trying to get into hiking. We we kind of like more of, let's get up to the top of, or let's go to the beach and look around. But we're getting into being extremely healthy. And I'd like to say, oh, everything is, rainbows and unicorns. But of course, it's life, and um, we live it to laugh. We live it to have fun. We live it to love. Uh, you can hear my dogs barking now in the background. And we really try to focus on just being the kind of people who are warm and loving. And I have, in addition to my Lori, I have a wonderful family and support group that that are just incredible people. And just I'm so honored that it, the people that I call friends and family and in my support group are just some of the best people I've ever met. You know,
Yeah,
so
we
yeah, life is good.
need our tribe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this book, A Shadow of Me, what do you hope readers take away from this book?
So uh, as much as cocky 22-year-old Jen thought there is no one like me, still, I don't think there's anyone who's exactly like me, but there are so many people who have been through very traumatic things, and they've had, scary, horrible things happen in their life, or things that have changed their lives, and they think that, wow, I could never do this, or I could never do just, blank insert.
Mhm.
um, and you know one thing that I learned was you can always achieve dreams. You can always, sometimes those dreams change. Sometimes you lay them out and you go to work and they just fall into place. Usually, the majority of the dream comes true along with things that you never even thought of happening. And so I would say, the main thing with my book, uh, I just want people to understand that you can hit the rock bottom of rock bottom, and you can still, as long as you learn that honesty and learn to accept that you need help, and then to actually go to work when people are helping you, you can achieve anything. It's
Yeah.
never too late.
I imagine putting the work in is the hardest, one of the hardest things because
I
you're account, you have to be accountable for yourself.
I think you're right, but I would add, I think it's sometimes the work isn't the hardest part. Sometimes the acceptance that that sometimes the acceptance that you were, as far as me looking in the mirror, you really have to be accountable, like you just said, but also you have to be open enough to allow someone to help you, because that's hard.
Do you think it's because at that point you don't feel worthy of help or you've wronged so many people maybe that what is
Probably a little bit of both.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not in a 12 step program, but I did go to an A meeting as part of my therapy when I was in the VA at Leavenworth. And in fact, I was 9 days sober. And, uh, I remember, like, it was, it's not really like it's on TV, but it's pretty cool. And And one of the things that they do in their program is, they have you, it's acceptance of you, it's acceptance of, whatever's going on as far as, if it's, it's acceptance of how you're going to become into recovery, but also it's one of their pieces is making amends. And I would say it's harder to make amends. It's hard to with even yourself than it is to just, accept that you did other people wrong. Yes, that is a big piece of it. And sometimes that's like a crushing blow. But I think oh, yeah, you know, I'm going to make an amends to myself so that I can forgive myself and move forward. That is so hard, but it's so worth it. And once you think, okay, maybe I can forgive one little thing I did. I think that it's a piece that it's such a good, it's like you think it's going to be a little tiny piece, but it's like a boulder of you standing up for your, and understanding that you're worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if all that made sense, but I hope it did.
That made complete sense because
Cool.
I understand trauma too, not to
Oh, I know you do.
an extent as you maybe, but it's really hard to 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 look in the mirror and see that self-worth and realize that you
Yeah.
are who you are, not because of what you've done, but what
Right.
happened to you. And how do you grapple with that? How do you move on and forgive yourself? And that is, we're our hardest critics. So of course,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
gonna be tough, but I'm glad that you leaned into that pain and you pushed through it because you are a beautiful person today. And I feel like, well, tell me, like, what is the Jen of today compared to the Jen of in her 20s before the bombing? Would you say they're similar or?
Um, it's I think I'm starting to see pieces of that Jen. And I didn't think that I thought she was gone, 100%. Not to be like talk about me in my third person or whatever. But yeah, I think that um not Gen 2.0, but Gen with two N's, uh, definitely has a lot of those pieces. I still try to be cocky, but it's more loving cocky. And it might take me, it might take me a little bit longer to get the work done, or because when you get to 50s, things do change in your body a little bit, but it's you still do it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Just be like, hold on a second, give me a second.
Just slide into old age gracefully,
Right.
not so gracefully, it doesn't
Yes.
matter, right?
Absolutely. But yeah, that person who, just wanted to make a difference and, loved to feel strong and feel athletic and help people and, uh, you know, all of those things that I sometimes can recall, uh, thinking as a young person. Yeah, I mean, I work as a nurse, which is a amazing accomplishment to be to be someone who's been through all of the things I've been through. And then you want to talk about having to become transparent and subservient to a licensure board. um, that was not an easy task, but I did the work after I had gone through nursing school, after I had taken the NCLEX, everything. But now I get to work as a nurse, and I get to work. I work at the VA. I help my fellow veterans, and I go to work, and I hope that I make a difference, like somebody made. Those beautiful people at the VA helped me as. I mean, I don't work in the same area, but you get the gist.
Yeah. I love that
Yeah,
you said I get to
I
because
do.
Every day is a gift.
It is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You know.
So keep on going. So what's next for you, my dear? What's
So one, the book's about to be out, which is extremely exciting. I can't wait to hold it. You know.
yes?
um, I read somewhere, I don't remember who said it, but it made like it really resonated with me. They said, uh, when you write a book, it's like telling a joke and then finding out 2 years later if it was funny. I think it was like Jimmy Kimmel or somewhere, like somebody like that. I don't remember, but yeah, I mean it's how many times have I, looked at what I've written and been like, is that good? Is that good? I wonder if that's good. Is that good? you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and now to have it coming out is like it's just amazing. It's kind of magical, you know. So yeah, so obviously the book. Um, I'm on a I'm on a healthy uh, um, kick of I plan on being around a long time. Plan on being part of, integral part of the young people in my family, as far as I've got nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews, and it's just amazing. And I want to be part of their lives, and I want to be a healthy part of their lives. I want to be an 80-year-old who can walk to the restroom myself, or live on my own and be, and so I'm
Those are
on.
great goals, Jen.
Thank you.
The goals that we get, as we get older, they do change a little bit. And yeah,
Oh, they do.
okay,
Yes.
get to the
When I was
bathroom when you're
22, my
80 years
goal
old
wasn't
by
walking to the
yourself.
bathroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're
But
excited for your book.
thank
Absolutely.
you.
And we can't wait for the book launch and the book signing and all that fun stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
you've been through so much. What advice might you give to someone who is in the thick of it right now, going through their trauma experience?
I think one, if it's somebody either going through a trauma, or even maybe somebody whose loved one is going through something, and they're just trying to reach out and help. One, be kind to you. Be transparent. Just know that there's always somebody who's going to help. It's just if you're looking in the right place, and also, uh, don't don't think people are going to tell you no without making them tell you no. Go, get dressed, get cleaned up, get some nice, get a nice shirt on. Go ask for that job. Go. You don't know until you've asked, and if they don't tell you no, then they're maybe telling you yes.
I like that.
Thank
Thank
you.
Do you have any additional comments or topics that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about?
I don't think so. I think this has been really good. I think this is. I'm excited to be on your podcast, and I'm excited to know you as my friend. And I think that I think that there's a lot of people that we can help. And yeah, I'm excited to have this journey, and continue moving forward and see what the next decade brings. And
Yeah,
maybe there'll be another book, or hey, we'll see.
we'll see. You never know, right?
That's right.
We just got to get to the bathroom by the time we're 80 on our own, and we're good.
Right. And
Everything else is bonus.
hopefully we'll have a bidet, and maybe a Japanese toilet, hey.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you, my friend, for sharing your heart, sharing your truth on our show. That's a wrap, everyone, for this episode of the Quixotic Heights podcast. Jen, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you say it with me? Quixotic
Quixotic.
Heights podcast. Where dreams take flight. Thank you to Jennifer Mangini for sharing all your beautiful stories with us.
Yes.
The insights of A Shadow of Me, which is coming out very soon, the next month or so. And if you enjoyed today's show, please do subscribe, give us a lovely review wherever you get your podcasts. And check out the show notes. We'll have a bunch of stuff about Jen's books, where you can find her, how you can follow her on her next adventure. And with that, ciao.
Bye bye.
Bye.